Hello, this is Ann Wagoner. Today I'm going to give a presentation on Connectivism, a learning theory for the digital age. Connectivism is considered a learning theory for the digital age because it addresses the role that technology plays in the learning process. It contends that knowledge is distributed across a network of connections. Therefore, learning consists of the ability to construct and traverse those networks. And networks aren't necessarily new. People have had networks for ages, but adding in digital technology allows us to enhance and extend our networks online in a way that wasn't possible before the internet. Connectivism as a learning theory was developed by two Canadian researchers, George Siemens and Stephen Downes, in 2004. Siemens in particular had been observing how learning was changing in the new millennium, with people needing to learn different jobs over their lifetime, with informal learning happening quite a bit. And he was also interested in how technology was reorganizing how we live, communicate, and learn, as this was the time period when the internet was taking off and so forth. And he had been a student of learning theories that existed at the time, but he and Downes both concluded that a new theory was needed to explain how learning occurs in a rapidly changing information environment. There are 8 principles of connectivism. Learning and knowledge rests in a diversity of opinions. Learning is a process of connecting specialized nodes or information sources. Learning may reside in non-human appliances, such as computers. The capacity to know more is more critical than what is currently known. Nurturing and maintaining connections is needed to facilitate continual learning. The ability to see connections between fields, ideas, and concepts is a core skill of connectivism. Currency, meaning accurate and up-to-date knowledge, is the intent of all connectivist learning activities. And decision-making is itself a learning process, especially in choosing what to learn, because what's right today may be wrong tomorrow because of alterations in the information climate. Using connectivism as a learning theory has a number of benefits. It builds on the interaction with technology and human networks that students already use in daily life. Connectivism is student-centered, allowing students to make choices about their learning, where the teacher is more of just a facilitator. It promotes group collaboration and discussion. It allows for different viewpoints and perspectives, and it encourages problem solving and decision making. Connectivist theory has been applied in a number of ways in the 15 years since it was first written about in 2004. Siemens and Downes used it to create the first massive open online course, or MOOC, on their theory on connectivism and connective knowledge in 2008. There had been online courses before that, but for this particular one, Downes had written the program for the platform that it was held on so that it could accommodate many people, and they ended up having more than 2,000 involved in that first course. And MOOCs took off after that for several years, probably until 2013, 2014. For various reasons, they were not as popular anymore, but obviously online courses still are, as we are taking one. It's also used in the classrooms, both in K-12 education and in higher education. And it also has applications in professional development. As an application of connectivist learning theory, I have designed a re-entry to research workshop, which would be offered during the July intensive of the graduate program at Messiah College. It would be open to anyone who wanted to attend, but it would be particularly designed for those who may have had a gap between their undergraduate years and starting graduate school. And the idea would be to help them ease back into research, particularly using the internet, which, depending on how long ago they graduated, might not have been around when they were in undergraduate, as it wasn't for me. So So this is not to take the place of the orientation that the library does to find scholarly sources, because although scholarly sources will be mentioned in this workshop, the idea is to show students that they have the freedom to look at other things on the internet, and that can help with their thinking toward scholarly sources. So this workshop will use the tenets of connectivist learning theory to look at research processes, and it will give the opportunity for students to expand their current networks. Here I have provided an outline of the activities in the workshop, and with each one I have associated one of the principles of connectivism that I mentioned earlier. Think of this as a loose guide because what's most important is how they relate as a whole, but I thought it might be helpful to take a look at those again as we were going through the workshop. First, there would be introductions of the facilitator, of the students, of the reason for the workshop, and then also to form small groups. I would envision no more than 12 to 15 students total in the workshop, so dividing into 3 or 4 groups of 3 to 5 people each would be good. And then doing an icebreaker within the small groups. I thought describing research in your college days might be interesting, since the overall topic is how research has changed. So some people may have used the card catalog like I did. Others will have used CD-ROMs or dial-up internet or the internet as it exists now if they're recent graduates. And then I would suggest bringing the whole group back together to talk about how you use the internet and making a list of that on the blackboard or the whiteboard. And I imagine answers would be watching videos, looking up recipes, doing social media, all sorts of things. And having that list would be helpful later as we get into the central project of the workshop. And the next thing would be to introduce the research questions, and each group would be assigned one. And potential research questions would be, how do you determine sources, how valid they are, and so forth. And another question might be, how do you organize and collect research? Like, do people still use index cards, was a question that I had. Okay, so the next step will be to set the students loose to answer the research question that they've either been presented or came up with on their own. And also, I think it's important to specify that in the group, like each person should come up with a different kind of a resource. And it could be videos or popular articles, or it would be great if one person could find something scholarly if they've already learned how to use the library website, or that could be helpful. And then after they've had some time to do that, I think coming back to the larger group and talking about their findings, and I think in doing that you could point out some of the connections that have been made between fields, ideas, concepts, and so on. And then wrapping up, discussing what the group has learned, maybe an answer to their specific questions about research, but also just maybe what they might have thought about the process. And since connectivism is all about networks, I think an invitation to continue the network development would be great. Perhaps there could be some kind of a wiki set up that people can continue to share ideas about research and so on now that they have met a network of their peers. Thank you for listening to my presentation. And here are the references I used if you would like to explore this interesting topic any further.